Welcome to the Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite directors and the deeper meaning within their films. And welcome to our new channel, First Cut.
Yo,
this is the channel where you're going to find not only the Meaning of Podcast, but more content from me and Robert. We are bringing you new videos, new ideas, new beginnings, all in 2019 right here in First Cut. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and support the homies. Hashtag support the homies, man.
Support the homies. Support First Cut. And also the SoundCloud as well. We're on SoundCloud. So SoundCloud listeners, we already have something like 100 plays on there. We haven't really promoted it. Yeah.
That's great, man.
I added the little hashtags on a lot of episodes. So like the Harry Potter episode has like hashtag Harry Potter, hashtag Harry Potter books, hashtag, you know what I mean? So I think some random, strays are like, we have 66 episodes, so it's like one play per episode. But
Sure,
we're getting it.
That's
we're
awesome.
Back.
2019, man, it's our year. We're doing it big. We're doing it new. First Cut.
Yeah.
First Cut.
First Cut, the channel. And, of course, we have to welcome the Collider Factory audience.
Oh, that's right. We're on Collider Factory.
Yeah, we're on Collider Factory for the first time ever. So thank you guys for, hopefully a lot of you guys came from the Schmoes Know iTunes feed. A lot of our fans were originally on there. I know making the transition is hard, but a lot of our Schmoes fans are fans of Collider. And if you're just fans of this podcast, I hope you listen to the Adam McKay episode and know to come over.
Or if you're a new listener, welcome.
If you're a new listener, yes, welcome.
Welcome to our top 10 of 2018. This is going to be a fun list. I've been doing this. I used to do this with the Wangers and JTE. Then with you, and now it's just you and me doing the top 10 list. But every year, it's always a lot of fun.
We split. Yeah, there was a lot of divide. My first year, I was an intern with the Schmoes. We all did it together.
That's right.
Then year two, just like all fizzled away.
We all fizzled away, man. We're all on our own vibe, riding our own waves.
Yeah.
2019, we're going to be talking about the years of 2018, our top 10 list of 2018. Now, 2018 was definitely an interesting year for movies, to say the least. I would say when it comes to certain award-type movies, I was somewhat disappointed as far as what 2018 brought. Obviously, we're going to get more into it when we talk about our favorites of the year. But once again, guys, we're going to be going down our top 10 of the year. So if some of your favorite movies of the year are not on this list, or if some of your favorite movies that you feel should be on our list is not on the list, it's okay. You can still join in on the conversation. Let us know what is your favorite. Let us know what you think of our list. It doesn't have to be the exact same. Everything is fine and joyful in 2019. Let's bring the peace and positivity. But either way, we're still going to get into it as far as what our favorites are, as far as what we consider to be quality films and what we consider to be our most impactful top 10 movies of 2018.
Yeah.
Every year, it's a lot of fun, RB3. What do you think of the year in total?
The year in review? I mean, honestly, bro, like, I'm not going to lie. A lot of the big movies didn't really do it for me. And a lot of the smaller movies didn't really do it for me either. And, I feel like a lot of times it's easier to say, like, oh, this is the most disappointing year. This is the most disappointing year. But I think this was genuinely the year that I didn't have, like, a one standout movie. You know what I mean? Like, usually in a year, most of the time I'll have that one movie that's just like, that's it. That's the number one. Like, that's just locked in place, And sometimes it'll happen as early as, for me last year, it was as early as January with Dunkirk. That was like, as soon as I saw that movie, I'm like.
That came out in January?
Not January, I'm sorry, July.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, another month that starts with a J. But July, when it came out in July, halfway through the year, I was like, okay, that's number one.
Sure.
And everything else is competing with that, With this year, I literally had just 10 movies that I was like, okay, these are what I'd consider the 10 best. I don't really know where to put them because they're all good to their own standard. But and to me, it's like, I wish there was a little, there was, we didn't get that like standout, like unique, like, we didn't get like a Charlie Kaufman film, or we didn't get like a, something like weird or different. Everything, like all of the movies kind of felt, I guess they're weird in different movies. Sure. Maybe I just didn't catch them.
Yeah. You mean like an indie movie that had like a crazy perspective?
Yeah, it had, and I think, some of the movies that I'm recognizing, I think do, and there are plenty of movies that I haven't seen that are probably super unique and super weird and interesting, but I feel like the time period that we are in now, like historically, just in America and American cinema, all these a lot of films have to feel like very, very stressful. You know, the film the film landscape in general, I feel like the film landscape, the stories that are being told in 2018 are a lot more stressful, a lot more intense than I feel like a lot of movies that we've seen in previous years. So it's a different kind of energy, I feel like, just in this whole year in general, you know? And I think I'm saying that, and it's not making a lot of sense now, but when I start talking about the movies that I have picked, like, it'll all make sense to exactly what I mean. Like, these movies are all very much about something very prevalent, you know what I mean?
Interesting.
So, but I just feel like that's what the overall thing is, whereas I feel like in previous years, like we had the La La Land versus the Moonlight. Like we had the super bright and optimistic film versus the realistic thing. You know, even last year we had Shape of Water, which was a little lighter, versus what was the big other film last year? Get Out.
Get Out.
Yeah, which was a more serious kind of thing. But again, both you know, they both encapsulated what the times were, and I feel like we're headed towards a time that our films are going to get a lot more stressful and a lot more, I guess, relevant, to say the least.
For sure, man. Yeah. I'm excited to hear your list. I mean, every year we always have interesting opinions, to say the least.
Yeah, and I see this is also like I also have a tough time with doing these lists because it's like I haven't seen all of the movies in 2018, so it's hard for me to say like
I've seen
these are the definitive 10 movies that are the top of 2018. You know? And I always have a hard time with grappling with that because it's like I know for a fact it happens every single year. I put out a top 10 list and then I'll see another movie like in August of like 2019 that came out in 2018 that was just amazing and blows my mind. I'm like, damn, that if I would have saw that earlier, it would have been on the list, you know? And recently Seth Rogen had this tweet where he said like the Oscars should wait 5 years before they hand the Best Picture award or somebody. And it was kind of a joke, but I kind of think that's like kind of a good idea almost, you know? Because like it really gives a film time to like really sit in people's minds and really resonate in that kind of way. So
please tell me you at least have a top 10 list.
I do have a top 10 list.
Do you have honorable mentions? Because let's start with that. Let's start with your honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions, I have
these are the movies that almost made your list but didn't quite make it.
Yeah, I have a fat pile of honorable mentions. I got to go. Tully was an early one I saw in the year. That was really great. Charlize Theron. Ending was kind of stupid, but really great acting and Jason Reitman, you know, direction. Sorry to Bother You was also a very good honorable mention for me. Boost Riley, Pun the Clinic.
We saw that together.
We did see that together. First Man, Ryan Gosling, great job. Damien Chazelle. I know you weren't too keen on it. A lot of people really weren't too keen on it.
I didn't think it was bad. I just thought it was okay.
Yeah. It
was okay.
I thought it was well done, and you know, much respect to Damien Chazelle for breaking out of the musical genre. You know, excuse me. Instant Family. With Mark Wahlberg. What are you shaking your head for, man?
I can't, man. I can't. Bro. I can't get into that. Every time I see that trailer, I'm like, how is this good?
Okay, like, you think that? Yeah. Then you watch this movie, man.
That's what people keep saying. Yeah. That's what I said about Searching. Yeah. I was like, I'm not going to watch that movie. And then I was like, fine, I'll watch it. Yeah. Just because I was like, a laptop movie? That sounds stupid.
Yeah, Modern Family already did that before that one. I actually haven't seen Searching. So, I also have a whole list of movies that I haven't seen that could probably make this list.
Let us know,
Instant Family, also honorable mention. Vice is an honorable mention. Three Identical Strangers, one of the best documentaries of the year. I also missed it. And oh man, if there was a number 11 spot, this one I really grappled with not getting on the list, man. This one was real tough to leave off. Mission Impossible Fallout. Mission Impossible Fallout was
did it make you top 10?
It was almost there, man. It was almost there.
That's controversial off the bat,
that was almost there. It was
that top
there.
10 better be fire, man.
It was almost there. There's a bunch of movies that I haven't seen yet that like probably would make the list if I'd seen them. Won't You Be My Neighbor, another documentary, RGB, you know, about Ruth Bader
Ginsburg.
There we go. Shoplifters, I really wanted to see. Burning, I also wanted to see the foreign cinema. I'm not giving as much respect. I want to see Burning so bad. Yeah. Leave No Trace. I started watching that on Amazon, but I didn't get a chance to finish it. Mid-90s, I didn't watch either. Respect to Jonah Hill, but did you see Mid-90s?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I just... I'm good.
Right. I liked him because he went on all like the complex shows and like sneaker shopping.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
He put on the black accent for he did the Tarantino thing where he started acting black and black on black shows. Like, yeah, man, I love hip hop. This has been my entire life. So, but yeah, those are my honorable mentions, and those are movies I haven't seen.
Copy.
But yeah,
good deal, man. Yeah, honorable mentions for me. Again, sorry to bother you.
Sorry to bother you. Okay. I thought for sure that'd make your list.
You know what's funny, man? I told you after we saw the movie together. I said the first half of this movie is like my favorite movie of the year. That twist, which I guess I won't see. A lot of people haven't seen it, but you already kind of spoiled it. But I mean, if you haven't seen it, come on now, you're kind of late. But that twist, it just took me out. Immediately, I was like, this is my favorite movie of the year. This is amazing. This is like the editing. It's funny. It's like political. It's in your face. It's so different. It's new. It's fresh. And then I was like, ugh, what is that? What is this? I don't get it. Like, I mean, I get it, but it's too much. It's too much for me. Almost made my top 10, though. I can't lie. Like, I still almost put it in my top 10 just because there's not a lot of other movies.
Right.
I loved Upgrade. I think Upgrade is a really good sci-fi, low budget,
good
action movie. A super cool shot movie. It's got some of the best action scenes, and it's so low budget. I love how low budget cyberpunk it is. It's compared to something like 2049, which costs like $200 million. You see,
way better than 2049.
I don't know about that, but you see the difference between like a $200 million cyberpunk movie and like a $16 million cyberpunk movie. And I think the creativity that Lee Whannell?
James Wan collaborator.
Yeah, the creativity that he used with a low budget is just something that should be commended, and he should be given even more movies in the future, because that to me was an impressive movie, to say the least. And I can't lie, man. I saw Won't You Be My Neighbor. It's a great one. It almost made my top 10.
Made it.
Yeah, it's difficult for documentaries to make my top 10.
Yeah.
And I can't lie. I almost put Aquaman in my top 10.
Aquaman?
All right, I almost put Aquaman in my top 10. We haven't even started, man.
We haven't even talked about Aquaman.
We haven't talked about Aquaman, but
all.
I loved Aquaman. I thought it was sick. Okay. I thought it was such a dope, fun. Obviously, it's not like a serious Dark Knight. It's not. It's a super big, over-the-top superhero movie. And I think it's done the best that it's been done in a while.
Yeah.
Compared to other fun superhero movies that people like a lot and that I don't get why people like.
Venom?
Venom is an example because I don't get it. I was talking to my homie over the weekend. How can you like Venom but not like Aquaman? Because Venom is like, it's silly, dumb fun. And I'm like, it's just dumb. Whereas Aquaman is like, that's fun. That to me was like a ride where everything was like a visual spectacle.
Yeah.
Like you take it in with your eyes, and the story is kind of just super by the numbers. It's overdone, it's overplayed, but it's done to be entertaining, and that's what I felt with Aquaman. And that's why I almost made my top 10.
That's funny, man. That's dope, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually liked Aquaman. I didn't say it on this podcast, but I think it's just the weirdness of it is definitely worth commending. Like in terms of like weird blockbusters, that's the closest. You know, there's always that every year we have like the Valerian or the one like really off kilter sci-fi movie.
Leave it to James Wan to do it, man.
Yeah, and it was a DC movie too, so it was a nice combination of that.
Yeah. Now let's get to our top 10 list, starting with number 10. I will start with you, RB3, on your number 10.
My number 10?
Mr. RB3.
Yeah, my number 10 starts with a lot of people's number ones, man, honestly. And I listened to the Wenger show, and almost all these guys had this at their number one. That's Hereditary. Hereditary.
You finally saw it.
I finally saw it.
I've been telling you for months to see this movie, man.
Yeah. I mustered up the courage. It got when it became free on Amazon Prime. I was like, all right, no more excuses, you know. So I sat there, waited to the darkest of nights, 2 a.m. in the morning, to really enjoy, really see what this is all about. Didn't watch it on the TV though, because I knew it was gonna be like way too scary for that. Made sure I got a nice laptop. To really tamper down the scares.
Perfect, dude. That's perfect.
Yeah, it was great, man. I think for horror movies, it's really challenging to make a genuinely good story, along with setting that kind of atmosphere, along with having a mythology as well. Like this movie has a very clear mythology that it's adapting with like the paganism and all that stuff.
Yeah, the demon. shit.
Yeah.
You don't mess with that demon shit, bro.
Yeah,
that's the whole time I was watching that movie. That's what I kept repeating.
Yeah,
I was like,
those candles and all that shit.
Don't go.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Don't write those symbols. If you see them symbols, you run away.
Yeah, reading some like Latin language and shit. Like,
that's when you back off.
Yeah, I'm chilling on that.
I ain't messing with no demons.
Nah, hell nah. So all of that was great, but it's also horror from like the psychological standpoint too, right? Like that's why I love the movie The Babadook. That's one of my favorite horror movies because that movie is all. And same thing with The Shining. Those movies are all about the internalized horror, like from inside, the mentally disturbed, externalizing itself onto, and both in all of these cases, children, right? And I think that's what makes it even more horrifying. So
yeah, Ari Aster, man, is a director to look out for. The fact that
that's his first feature.
That's his first feature film, man. I mean that's when you know this guy has talent.
Yeah.
I mean I was thinking about it the other day because I was talking to my friends about what are the best shot movies of the year as far as cinematography. To me, that one's up there.
I mean, right, definitely, yeah.
Considering it's got such a low budget and it's not like this massive like $200 million like Blade Runner 2049 type crazy shot movie. Yeah. It's just a small, low budget horror movie, and it's one of the best shot movies of the year. Just thinking about creating atmosphere, like you just said, that's like the most important thing in a horror movie, and he did that like right at the first scene when you go to the miniaturized.
Yeah, into the house.
Yeah, into the house. Yeah, you're like, man, this is cool.
Yeah, that's even when I saw that, I was like, damn, this is the first. Even just from the opening shot, I was like, this is the first time director. Like,
yeah,
that's crazy.
He's got talent, man.
Yeah. So very, very well done on that front.
Speaking of first time directors, my number 10 is from a first time director as well, and it's someone that I actually have been following a little bit, just because we did some stuff with him with my company, and that is Mr. Carlos Lopez Estrada, who did a little film called Blind Spotting, an Oakland film. This film for me had to balance a lot of things, but it's basically the heart of Daveed Diggs and Rafael Casal, two homies from Hamilton, I believe. And they wanted to do a movie about gentrification of Oakland and basically how these new tech companies coming into Oakland and kind of dividing up now this new rich area and kind of tearing down the older, poorer neighborhoods. Literally the definition of gentrification, which has been in the news quite a bit over this year. And this film, to me, man, it's a really, really fantastic feature film debut because this is his first feature film. It combines comedy with some serious notions. It's creative. It's different. It's got this outside world kind of reality, but still somewhat grounded in reality as well. It's really relevant as far as obviously taking over of the neighborhoods and all that stuff, but also relevant when it comes to political ideology and when it comes to identity between whites and blacks within the same neighborhood too. I mean, to me, the standout in this movie is still Rafael Casal as Miles. That to me, that guy was just. I truly believed. I don't know if you've seen Blind Spotting.
I haven't seen it, no.
I truly believed. It's basically two homies. I mean, I'm sure you've heard a little bit about it, but it's basically two homies, Daveed Diggs and Rafael Casal, one white guy and one black guy. And they both grew up in the same neighborhood. But it's basically the white guy who grew up in the black neighborhood, right? Yeah. So he's like very much like that. He's super like, you can tell this guy grew up with a lot of black homies. Right. And he sells it. He sells it 100%. And in real life, he's just this goofy white guy. But in the movie, I believe that he was a thug, like a real big white thug guy who could beat the shit out of me. And him convincing me of that and him still being funny, but also being somewhat intimidating as well. Fantastic debut for him as an actor. Obviously, he's done other stuff before. But he really stole the movie for me. And obviously, like I said before, the movie is part musical, part like in reality, part art side of reality, part comedy, part drama. It's really a combination of quite a lot of things. No one saw this movie. Like I saw it in a basically empty theater on its like second week in like opening, and no one saw the movie. But I really do feel like this is such a great feature film debut for Carlos Lopez Estrada. Shout out to Carlos Lopez Estrada, Mexican director, slightly older than me. Living it up, man. Making really, really, really solid movie.
Hey, dope, man. I gotta check that one out. I'm definitely add that to the list, bro.
For sure. Number 9.
Number 9.
RB3.
Number 9 for me This one is an intense thriller that I really took a liking to on home video release. That's right. This is another Amazon Prime watch and an Amazon Prime original. You Were Never Really There, starring Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Lynn Ramsey. Follows Joaquin Phoenix's character, who's like this kind of like suicidal like hitman guy, who gets paid to like beat up like child pedophilia motherfuckers, you know. That's my first F word. I told myself I wasn't gonna curse.
I got on you last time about it.
He did. You know, it's funny. My buddy from high school, who he never like watched the show before. Last week the Adam McKay episode was his first episode he ever watched. And he was like, bro, like, I like your podcast. I just didn't know you guys cursed on it. I was like, oh, that's funny.
You're getting called out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna dial back a little bit. But this movie is warranted because like these dudes are sick, you know what I mean? And Joaquin Phoenix is really going in and chopping off heads. And you know, it's a brilliant thriller because it's not about the violence that's being perpetrated, but it's about the violence within this guy's head, because you see how disturbed and twisted he is, but he's just a totally normal guy, like on the exterior. But he's dealing with some very violent, like self-inducing like pain. You know what I mean? And you see that very reflectively throughout the film. And I think the way that was handled was very brilliant. Like I said, like there's not really any big like fight action scenes, because right when you think you're going to see some action, Lynn Ramsey cuts away from that and focuses instead on like the character moment within Joaquin Phoenix. And Joaquin Phoenix puts on a great performance. I don't know why this hasn't been like a more like award
attention.
Yeah,
I believe he won an award for it. I forget which
like
one.
It
was a festival award.
See, this is
for best actor.
This is the kind of movie that's like going to do great at like Indie Spirit Awards, I'm sure, and stuff like that. But the Oscars should really take a look at this movie. Because this is one of the best performances I've seen of the year.
It's Joaquin Phoenix, man.
Yeah,
one of the best working actors right now.
Yeah, killed it. So this is definitely my number nine spot goes to You Were Never Really There.
9. Speaking of number 9,
You're Never Really Here. I'm sorry, You're Never Really Here.
You're Never Really Here. Yeah, I still want to see it again. I haven't seen this movie.
Yeah,
I want to. I mean, when I first heard the premise, I was like, yeah, I want to see that movie.
Yeah,
Joaquin Phoenix playing like an assassin type guy. Hell yeah, I'm gonna see that.
Dope.
But yeah. Again, I have to take advantage of certain streaming services that I haven't had before.
Hey man, I hit you up with the Amazon password, bro.
And I'm like, I'm losing my mind, bro.
Hey.
I'm like, yo, I've never seen these shows. The Americans? I need to watch Mr. Robot. I'm gonna finally see Mr. Robot.
Yeah, we gotta do Meaning of Mr. Robot.
Yeah, man. I haven't seen it because it's so hard to find on these sites. But now that I have Amazon, I was talking to my friends over the weekend, and again, it's that one streaming thing I don't have, and they were like, oh, it's on Amazon. Come on, man. And I'm like, I don't have Amazon, but now I do.
Yeah,
thanks
Amazon.
to you.
You got it, bro. You got it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I waited too long to see you.
That's my Christmas gift, man. I mean, that's the gift that I received from you, man. And I take that.
Hey, man.
My number 9 is a movie that I had to put in my top 10 because as much as people want to say, oh, it wasn't as good as the first one, didn't live up to the hype, it's too overplayed, too overdone, I don't care. I liked it. I had fun. I enjoyed it. I felt moved, and I was in this movie, and that is Creed 2. Creed 1, the Ryan Coogler version of the movie, was my favorite movie of that year, which I believe was 2015. Yeah. And unfortunately, this is not my number 1, but it is still in my top 10 because, again, we both talked about it. It's still a solid sequel, man. It still has great performances by Michael B. Jordan. It still has a really well-done story. It still has dramatic effect with what's going on within the ring, what's going on out of the ring, what's going on with Tessa Thompson's character, how she feels in this relationship, what's going on with the Drago storyline, which we both thought was going to be something kind of dumb when we first heard about it. But when we saw it in the movie, we both enjoyed like the Russian angle. Like, what is his perspective? What does he feel like going through this journey, knowing what his father has done, knowing what his mother has been a part of, and knowing that she's not been a part of his life? The Drago storyline really is what not made the movie for me, but it's really what made it a good movie for me. And what really made it stand out to me was the whole Russian angle and the fact that he made that compelling. I forget the director's name. Remind me of his name. Stephen Cable.
Stephen Cable Jr.
Stephen Cable Jr.
Yeah.
The fact that he was able to make the Drago storyline actually emotionally compelling was what really made this movie be like, yo, this is going to be in my top 10. It still had so many great moments. The ending to me was fantastic, with Rocky connecting with his son once again, something that has been kind of forgotten within these past Rocky movies, Creed, and with the past Creed movie. And the fact that they brought it back, and they brought it back in a really well done kind of way, not just a rushed kind of silly way, but a very well-purposed, well-done, well-placed way, to me, is what made this movie great. I love Creed 2.
Yeah,
it's my top 10, my number 9.
Yeah, no, that's dope, man. I didn't put it on my list. It should have been honorable mentions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. They overall they did a great job. Well, because with something as sacred as Creed, like they could have really easily fucked that up, but that's they didn't. So yeah.
Now to number 8. RB3's number 8.
Number 8. There's another independent. This is the second 824 movie, I think. I don't know if actually maybe it's not 824, but it's the second or really third super indie movie that is on the list, and that is First Reformed.
It is 824.
That's 824. Yeah, this is the second 824 movie after Hereditary.
Also on Amazon. I also saw it on Amazon.
You saw it on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's right. Truly great film, man. Ethan Hawke.
Yeah. It almost made my top 10.
Yeah.
Just to spoil it, it's not in my top 10, but it almost made my top 10.
This is a movie I think of when I think of 2018, right? Like this is a movie about religious and reconsidering religion. This is a movie about climate change. This is a movie about how the fear of the world is matriculating its way inside of humans and men, and what does that mean? How does religion influence that fear? What does it mean to be a sacrificial lamb? Like, it's all of these like really deep, powerful, potent questions that are just being asked, and it's all told through the perspective of Ethan Hawke's character and Amanda Seyfried and Cedric the Entertainer.
That's a great role for him. Dude.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah, he wasn't doing some stupid shit. He was actually like acting. You know,
I believed he was like a pastor of like a megachurch.
Yeah.
I totally believed it. I was like, As someone who's grown up in church his entire life, this movie really did touch some stuff inside of me, and I mean that personally, because I was like, this is something that I've always had conversations about, and I've talked to you a little bit, not a lot, about certain stuff within the church and certain stuff out of the church and certain stuff that becomes quote unquote politicized, even though it's like Ethan Hawke says in this movie, not really political.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not really a subject matter that has two sides. It really shouldn't have two sides. And it's something that even Ethan Hawke says in this movie, that the church could be at the forefront, but instead they go in the back and kind of play this whole like political angle of joining up with these companies when that's never what the church was really meant for, as far as like joining up with CEOs and companies, and how the church kind of blends in with those two things, and how Ethan Hawke is like, wait a minute, that's not what the Bible says. That's not what the Bible says at all. Like how we can misinterpret what is it, dominion over this earth, right? And how so many people of faith really think dominion over this earth means let's take a giant dump on earth. And I'm like, that's not what it means. It means let's take responsibility. Just because we have dominion doesn't mean we shouldn't take responsibility of our actions on this planet. This is still God's earth. Yeah. This is still, this is still what He gave us. This is still His gift to us. So to me, that all that stuff was just similar to what Aronofsky has done in the past about the exact same subject, because Aronofsky has a very religious perspective on climate change and on what's happening to the planet. He feels like this is God's gift, and instead of embracing God's gift, we pervert it and we change it, and we feel like we can do whatever we want with it, even though it should be precious, and we should hold it, and we should make it dear to our hearts. All that stuff to me was great. Obviously, the ending is a little nutty for me.
The last shot.
The last shot.
Yeah, I think the last shot is beautiful, man.
It's great. It really is. But there's certain moments where I'm like, yo, chill, man, chill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it really escalates.
Chill, fam.
Like, it definitely escalates.
Yeah.
Like, the way it was
I'm
escalating,
literally
I'm like,
screaming, chill.
Yeah.
At him.
Yeah.
As he's putting certain stuff on himself. And I'm like, yo, chill.
But he's fucking. I don't know. I also like low key like always have an affinity for when characters drink in movies. So when the way this dude was drinking was a little out of control. He wasn't Bradley Cooper level in The Star Is Born.
He wasn't.
But
if he was, he would have gotten nominated for an Oscar.
He would have gotten nominated for an Oscar.
Because that's what it takes,
that's
man.
That's what it takes. Just act super drunk. Ace, but I got a proposition, man. And this is no bullshit. Sometimes we say things like and we propose things and we don't really do them. But this is a real proposal, man. What? All right, so you know how A Star Is Born is a remake. That's been a movie that's been remade 4 times. Like, what if we did a meaning of A Star Is Born, the meaning of A Star Is Born, where we compare and contrast all 4 versions?
Oh my god,
of the movie.
That's deep.
Yeah, the 30s version, the 50s version, the 70s version.
Oh, I'm totally down.
Today's version. You know what
absolutely.
I mean?
Especially because we have
Oscars.
we both follow music, and pop music, and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I feel like our perspective would be very interesting for that.
Yeah. Because the first 2 were about movie stardom, not even music stardom. And then the 70s one, that's when it became music, and then the most recent one, of course, country music. But yeah, we
got to do it, man.
Yeah.
But either way, number 8, First Reformed.
Number 8, First Reformed for me.
It's a great choice, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Once again, almost made my top 10.
Yeah.
My number 8 is a movie that I saw last week, I believe, last week. And it's a movie that I really, really enjoyed. And I'm surprised it's not getting more award attention. It somewhat is. It is for a certain actress. But as far as overall film, for me, this is one of my favorites of the year. Number 8, it's If Beale Street Could Talk.
Oh, okay.
The Barry Jenkins follow-up to Moonlight. I love this movie, man. I mean, right away, as soon as it opens up and you see that shot from above and you hear that score, RB3, my God, it's so good. It's probably my favorite score of the year already. Just immediately it starts out, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to fall in love too with whoever's here. But I love this movie, man. I love what the story brings. I love the narrator perspective of her character. I forget her name. Tish, there you go. And I feel like right away I'm immediately connected to their love story. Right away I'm immediately connected to both of them. This idea of growing up together and being in love together and falling in love together, which is such an interesting thing, right? Because she talks about, like, even as children, we didn't really know what connection was as far as physical connection, because we're just kids, we're just playing. But that idea of how these 2 friends and kids growing up can fall in love together, and the idea of knowing someone, the idea of believing someone through the thick and thin, through horrible situations and horrible scenarios, right? Because it's about the alleged rape of someone who we believe who's getting falsely accused of it, right? Or we will be believed to be falsely accused. And to me, that's such a fascinating story, because it's the idea of, like, not my son, not my husband, not my friend. He's not going to do that. He would never do that. That's not possible. And also the idea of this time period and how easy it was to frame anyone. Any police cop could just frame a guy just because he got in his face and he didn't like him. And it really has a lot to say about race, has a lot to say about religious ideologies, because there's that scene with the mother and how she sees the relationship as a sin and all this stuff as punishment and crime, and how she justified I forget his name, Fonny, is it Fonny?
Fonny, yeah.
Fonny's mother, and how she justified his sin as like, oh, he's rightfully being punished, even though she doesn't realize that that's not the way to think of your son, because your son is being wrongfully accused and wrongfully punished. And don't think of this as justice. All the themes of the movie, it's beautiful. It's one of the best shot movies of the year. This is another one that I was talking about cinematography with my friends. This should be what I consider to be one of the best shot movies of the year. I really enjoyed this movie. If Beale Street Could Talk.
I have a lot to say about it later.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh, later? Okay,
yeah, later.
Fine. Number 7, RB3. What's your number 7?
So number 7 for me is for at least the return to the mainstream. Not really the return to the mainstream, but maybe the return to a lot of people. For a lot of people, Spike Lee's Black Klansman.
Whoa!
Number
7?
Yeah, I mean, that's good. That was really good. That's good. Yeah, so I love this movie. I love this movie.
Yeah. I rewatched this one last night. Using your account.
Well, I brought it on my account. Yeah.
It's like, you own this movie. And I'm like, hell yeah, I do. I'm going to watch that shit again.
Yeah, I think this is actually the only movie I brought this year, actually. Black Panther I have on Blu-ray, but that was given to me. But yeah, this is the only movie I brought this year. I love this movie. I'm infatuated with this movie. Of course, I love Spike Lee.
But you put it at number 7, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Spike Lee. And this is a great addition to his filmography. It's not necessarily the best, but it's far from the worst. This is probably definitely one of his top films. I do think there is some, to me, what knocks this movie down a little bit in the pegs is, it's obviously based on a true story, and the based on a true story thing is a, thing that a lot of Hollywood movies say. But this movie is accurate, but it's not really all that accurate.
Sure. But is that really what got you off?
Well,
because he doesn't even say based on a true. He says, "Yo, this is based on some for real shit, yo."
For sure, yeah. So I think, but yeah, I mean, that's Spike Lee's way of saying like, don't really take it that seriously. I think of course, the very real hitting part at the end is very impactful. But for me, I don't know. Recently, I've really started to think a lot about historical accuracy when it comes to movies. Only in the sense that, like, what is the long-term
responsibility?
Yeah, or not just responsibility, but a lot of times the movie becomes the text. A lot of times people watch the movie and think this is reality. Where does that add a level of responsibility to that? And a lot of people say, well, filmmaking is about storytelling, it's not about history. You're a storyteller, not a historian. But you almost think like, well, historians are storytellers too, because they are retelling history just through a specific perspective and using evidence to justify that story or whatever, to tell that story. So more particularly, I watched the movie Death of Stalin. I don't know if you've seen that one. And that movie gets a lot of regard for his high historical accuracy. However, there is one scene in that movie that they not completely make up, is based on a real thing. But there's a scene in the movie that after Stalin's death or whatever, there's a big, I guess, they portray a big protest with thousands of people getting shot and all this kind of shit. And that event, that type of event happened, but it was only 100 people, where the movie way overblew it with thousands of people. And it had some other things that were a little off historically. And that really got me thinking, damn, if they show this in a history class, a kid will really think this kind of huge massacre happened under Russian, whatever. So it's oh, okay, that definitely might matter to some extent. So I think about this story, and this story being so important and so beautiful, as this black undercover agent going undercover for the KKK. It's okay, this is a great film, obviously, but the whole thing with the bomb threat at the end was kind of made up, which is fine. It's a movie, so they have to, heighten the stakes and everything. But it's just if somebody were to watch this sometime down the line, that's a little exact. It turns into the blaxploitation thing that they kind of mock early on in the movie. Sure. So which is totally fine, because I love blaxploitation personally. But in terms of actual quality of the film, it's everywhere else it's perfection almost, and it's perfection in a way that Spike Lee's filmmaking is flawed, but it's still perfect in that it's wholly him as well. Sure. But yeah, I love this movie, and yeah, I mean, it gets a couple of points knocked off because of that, but otherwise, and I think Boost, and also one last thing about it, Boost Riley kind of had a criticism about it. He put out this whole essay where he talked about how it's basically he didn't like Black Klansmen because he thought it was pro-cop propaganda, essentially. I agree with that a little bit, but also strongly disagree with that, because I think they show the police in pretty much in the exact same negative light for they show the negatives of being a police officer, being a black police officer in that station, also how police officers treated black people during that time too. So it does kind of show both sides.
I disagree with that completely. Just because I really, like you just said, it shows both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting that it's at your number 7.
Yeah. It's probably gonna be higher for you though, right?
We'll see. With the right white man, we can do anything. That's such a great line.
Though. Yeah.
That's such a great line.
Every performance
with the right white man, we can do anything.
Yeah.
Oh, Topher Grace. Is it Topher Grace?
Topher Grace.
Oh my God, he's so good in that.
Yeah.
My number 7
Yeah.
is a movie that I don't know where it's going to be in yours, but it's at my number 7.
Okay.
And it's a movie that really made a lot of waves this year, and that is Black Panther.
Oh, okay.
Black Panther is my number 7 movie of the year. This movie obviously started a freaking revelation. It's a revolution. The highest grossing movie domestically of the year. That to me is just an amazing stat already. It elevated Ryan Coogler to like legendary status already. We talked about it on the Ryan Coogler episode, how every film he's done has been a step up. And as far as quality, every single film of his delivers quality 100% all the way through. And Black Panther is no different. It starts out obviously with the character of Black Panther and the story of Wakanda, because Wakanda is as much a character as anyone else in the movie. It's a character within itself. It talks about what it represents to have this idea of like this African nation that is the most powerful, most rich nation on the planet. The responsibility that T'Challa has to watch over his nation, but at the same time, the responsibility he has towards the rest of the world. It's a very, very, very relevant movie. You talked about relevancy at the beginning of this episode. It's very relevant because it's literally about borders. It's literally about building walls and borders and tearing down walls and tearing down borders, which is what he talks about in the mid-credit scene. That's why it's the most relevant for me as far as that. And yeah, I mean, it really showed giving a giant budget to the right talent, and that is Ryan Coogler, and giving him that type of budget to make, like I said before about James Wan, a true spectacle film, but with a really great story. And the fact that everyone talks about Killmonger, and he was great. Killmonger was so good, but I just love his not just his confidence, but just his ideas of really righting the wrongs of the white man throughout history. And I think a lot of people, I don't know if they missed it or if they're kind of ignoring it, RB3, because I really feel like a lot of people are like, yo, he was cool, he had swag. And I'm like, yeah, but did you hear what he said?
Yeah.
I don't think you heard what he said. I think a lot of people were like, yo, Killmonger was cool, man. He knew how to fight.
That's what I'm saying.
And he shot a gun. He shot people. And I'm like, yeah, but he just said correcting the rights of the white man throughout history. He literally wants to arm all black people around the world with giant-ass weapons to take down the white man. I mean, yo.
See, bro, that's what I've been saying this entire time when people are like, oh, Black Panther doesn't deserve a Best Picture nomination. Like, that's a radical.
That's radical.
That's fucking insane.
That's
like,
crazy.
The fact that any of this movie, like, like, it's literally about a society that breaks into civil war because there's a radical who wants to kill all the white people. Like,
he wants to kill all the white people.
That is insane.
I don't think people heard that. Everyone was like, yo, he was cool, man. He knew how to. I'm like, did you just hear what he said? He wants to give like these giant ass like super beam weapons that take down like space dogs in Infinity War.
Really though,
They're like literally can blow up buildings. And he wants to give them to all the black people on the planet to like correct the wrongs. He wants to go after the white people. I was like, yo, that's crazy.
That's wild.
But I really enjoyed this movie.
Why number 7?
I mean, everyone always talks about the third act, but yeah, I mean, the third act is okay, man. And I really did feel like, as far as connecting right away towards the movie and connecting right away to T'Challa, it took me a hot minute, man, to be honest. That's why a lot of people connected more with Michael B. Jordan. A lot of people connected more with other side characters, but it took me a hot minute to connect with T'Challa. And that's just on a personal level, and that's just me being honest. I feel like there's a few moments as far as like an emotional connection that felt a little bit flat for me, as far as compared to other MCU movies that I hold in higher regard personally. That's why it's my number 7.
Cool, man. I mean, I have some more words for it later on down the line.
What's your number 6, man?
My number 6. Now, this one is, I do have to say there's this number because even though this is also another movie I saw on a streaming service, I do want to see this on the big screen, you know?
Okay.
I got to give all respect to my man, Alfonso Cuarón, for my number 6 pick, which is Roma.
You liked it that much?
Yeah, man. Roma was crazy to me, man. This definitely felt, you could feel that Alfonso Cuarón really put the time and the attention to detail. And this was a story that he was very passionate about. And he almost like really, he completely subverts his normal style of like the subjective camera, you know, usual thing. He kind of puts the camera in a more objective kind of standpoint, you know, featuring very like panny shots.
So many pans.
Yeah. A lot of dolly shots, like all those kind of like very static staccato shots. A lot of his filmmaking is very, you know, is usually the long takes in the terms of like handheld camera or in the case of Gravity, CGI camera. But this movie is all about the framing, the composition is all very reminiscent of like some nostalgic place, like this memory that he's recreating on film. And again, I only saw it on Netflix, and this is. And, I'm the biggest pro Netflix guy in the world. So I'm very happy to see this movie performing.
Did you see his conversation about?
Yes, I did. And he's
I was that guy. I was a reporter.
Right. Yeah.
I was the guy asking him. He's like, yo, you're destroying independent cinema, bro. That was me. Nah. But I have said that. I said that last year.
You did say that. Yeah.
I kind of agree.
You still agree with that guy?
No, I don't agree with it. I think his comeback was great. It was a true comeback. But I still feel like, this is still... I mean, time will tell what Netflix does to film.
No, I think Netflix has been doing that.
Because I saw it in theaters.
You saw it in theaters? You saw Roma in theaters?
I refuse to see it at home.
Yeah,
TV.
I mean, I normally wouldn't care as much about seeing it in theaters, but, I got to respect Alfonso Cuarón,
Yeah.
I know they're showing it at the Egyptian in 70mm on Thursday. I wonder if they still have tickets. I don't know if they still have tickets.
Yeah.
But that was definitely,
but you enjoyed the story. Because I mean, obviously there was a lot in this movie that I was like familiarized with, just because my dad grew up in the city during that time period. El DF.
Oh, okay, really? Wow.
In Mexico. And that's why I was familiar with a little bit of it. But I don't know. To me, it was more of just like a fly on the wall kind of film, simple.
Yeah, it was a slice of life.
Slice of life. Yeah. It didn't really hit me on a. I mean, obviously, it hit me at the end.
Yeah,
that whole thing at the end was it was a tragedy, obviously.
Yeah.
And I felt it personally, but at the same time, I was like, it didn't do it.
Yeah,
it just didn't do it for me.
Honestly, a lot of the movies in 2018 don't really have strong endings. Don't really land as strong. Black Klansman had a strong ending, but First Reformed had a controversial ending. Hereditary had a pretty good ending, but a lot of these movies don't really have the neatest of endings in 2018. But I feel like this one had a very beautiful ending.
It did.
Even when they're at the beach and everything.
Yeah, it ended strong to me. But the rest of it was just whatever to me.
Yeah, no, I see that, but I also just think that it was just brilliant.
I just think it has. I mean, obviously, we can talk about it now since it's not on my list. It was an interesting perspective. I was talking to my friend about it after I saw it in theaters, about just the idea, man, of like the fact that there's always going to be some sort of dominion over people, and that to me has always been something that's. It's frustrating, but that's the way it is too, right? I mean, the fact that these people, the fact that the movie starts out and I'm ready to see a Mexican film and it starts out and I hear them speaking and I don't know what they're saying. That to me was so fascinating because I speak Spanish and I was ready to hear, it's a movie, it's an entire movie all in Spanish. No, it's not. There's a lot of this movie that's in that native tongue. I forget what it is, because they're native and they speak that language. And there's a lot of native people that live in Mexico and that have that ideology and that live in those small towns and that are very, 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 very poor, like very poor. And you see that in the movie. And
the class disparagement.
The class, exactly. And you see how it is the darker native people that end up still serving the wider European Mexicans that have more money and that are like doctors and businessmen and stuff like that. And that to me was an interesting point.
Putting in black and white too, that really emphasized that.
Exactly. And that was an interesting point in the movie that really stood out to me personally because I was like, that's crazy that you can still have that subtle discrimination based on skin color and language.
Yeah, and that's why...
Even if they're Mexicans. It's the irony, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, all these movies are all dealing with something very relevant to today. Roma, Black Klansman, First Reformed, and You Were Never Really There. I mean, that movie is all about child pedophilia. We just saw the fucking R. Kelly documentary. Did you watch that?
I haven't.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's some heartbreaking
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be heartbroken.
You never want to listen to this shit again, man.
Yeah.
But
oh Lord.
Yeah. Oh no, it's crazy. But all of that shit, you see, all these movies have a very relevant theme, and so and Roma has a very relevant thing of like, you know, class and how the wealthy versus the poor and how that relationship manifests itself. So all of it is just great. I really enjoyed Roma.
I mean, the fact that Cuarón shot the movie himself.
Yeah.
It's just,
no DP, right?
As soon as he said shot by him on the opening credits, I was like, really? That's crazy, man. You shot the movie yourself.
That's what my boy Paul Thomas Anderson did last year with Phantom Thread.
Oh, that's right. Huh?
Yeah.
That's crazy,
There's
man.
no DP on that one.
That's crazy. So my number 6 pick is another movie from a first-time director. It's a director I feel that really, really stood out as far as what this film delivered. I don't know if you've seen it, RB3, but it is 8th Grade, directed by Bo Burnham.
That's my number 5. So
no way.
Perfect time to talk about
Perfect timing. Let's do it, man.
Hey.
This movie broke my damn heart. I don't know how many times I said, "Aw," in this movie. Like I literally said, "Aw," just because I felt really connected to this character. I felt every social battle that she was facing, because she was facing so many social anxieties, social battles, social identity, all this kind of stuff that she's facing in this time period. I believe it's like 13 years old? 13, 14?
13, yeah.
13 to 14 years old, that transition between middle school and high school, this idea of what she's supposed to be, this idea of socially connecting to people. I related to this movie so much, even though I guess I'm not the target audience. I shouldn't relate to this movie, but I did, just because I'm a very socially anxious person, and I'm not good in groups, and group settings are not for me. But obviously what she goes through in this movie is heartbreaking. It's sad to watch, but at the same time, it's so realistic. It's one of the most realistic coming-of-age movies I've ever seen. Versus other coming-of-age movies that are a little bit kind of floating slightly above ground as far as the reality connection towards it. This one felt like, yo, this is real. Like someone just got a camera and was shooting this girl and was like following along her story. It broke my heart. It made me think a lot more about identity and social constructs of this age period. And it really did its job as far as connecting with an audience. And that was me. I was the audience.
Yeah, no. And my biggest takeaway from this movie was the style. The style of this movie was insane. I think particularly with the scene where she goes to the pool party, and then she looks and she comes out of the house and she sees all the kids, and it's like a horror movie with death score and everybody's like doing crazy shit, and just it puts you, it's subjectivity to its finest. You know what I mean? It really puts you inside the mind of the character. It really puts you inside of what that character is feeling like and externalizes that. And I think that's really to me, that's what I appreciate most in filmmaking. I think Bo Burnham, being a YouTuber, managed to capture that in a really powerful cinematic way that is unique and original and very postmodern too. I also think to the scenes when she's looking on her phone and it's like the superimposed of, or she's like looking at stuff on her laptop or her phone or social media, and it's like superimposed over her face, like as she's reading it, and it's like very visceral. It's like right in there, you know what I mean? And that's how intimate a lot of people feel. That's how the connection to the social media and the internet to young people are, you know? The whole motif of her having a cracked phone screen and she's looking at the world through like this shattered lens, and it cuts her, you know, it literally cuts her thumb, and she's like, it's all like this big metaphor for, you know, the effects of social media on people and the effects of the internet generation, today's generation. And they even kind of discussed that in the film, like how 4 years between, you know, a 4-year distance between this, you know, high schoolers and middle schoolers in this generation is like completely different now, you know, like, and of course, and I even watched this movie and I think like, damn, like she's in 8th grade. She has to be what, like 13? Like they're already talking about like sex and stuff. Back in the 80s, like they used to be like you have to be a senior in high school before you even touch on in the movie at least. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't a kid in the 80s, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I really think about it. I was like, damn, was I at 13? It was probably for me. It was like 14, 15 when I started vibing those things. But you know what I mean? Like it was just
yeah, that was sad. To me, that was sad, and I think it was played off in a very like
mature way.
But yeah, it's like it's like this overwhelming pressure, and you're like, oh my God, she's feeling that at 13.
Mm-hmm.
God dang, like that's so sad, man.
Yeah.
Like she feels all this pressure to be active in a way that she's not even explored yet, and that she doesn't even want to explore yet. She just wants to chill and eat sandwiches with that homie at the end.
Yeah,
like that. I don't know. That's why I really like the ending.
Yeah, the
it's like,
nuggets.
man, I just want to chill and eat chicken nuggets, man.
Yeah.
Like, why does everything got to be hyper sexualized? And I don't know, man. I just felt so bad. I was like, my God, I feel awful.
Yeah,
poor girl. And the fact that it's also like about a girl too, a little girl, right? Versus like a little dude. If it was like a little homie, it's like you feel bad. But the fact that it was a little girl, your heart breaks a little more because you feel like that it's even more pressure, man. It's even more difficult. And it's hard. Yeah. I mean, I really felt connected to her and to that storyline and to her dad. Her dad was just like trying her best, man. He's trying his best.
Yeah, the dad was the nicest character, I feel like.
He was dope.
Yeah, no, all of the scenes, the music was crazy in this movie. The score in this movie was dope. Not, the very electronic, like kind of influence stuff was really nice. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
that did stood out to me.
Yeah, very made it feel like the technology stuff. So, yeah, I really dug this movie.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Boy Burnham.
That's my number 5. This is your number 6.
My number 5 is a movie that, for some reason, RB3 has been shrouded in controversy. And it's a movie that I was like, yo, that movie was dope. When I came out of the movie theater, I was like, yo, this movie's dope. It's going to be in one of my favorites for sure. One of my favorite movies of the year. It's my number 5, and that is Green Book, RB3.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen this one.
I love Green Book. Green Book stars Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. It's a road trip movie. It's a road trip story. It's based on a real-life musician. I love this movie. I love how it talks about identity. I love how it talks about being outside of your time period, because that's how Mahershala feels. He feels like he's not really within his own era. He feels somewhat disconnected from either identity, whether it be black, whether it be white, whether it be what he's doing to entertain people, and the relationship he has with fans versus the relationship he has with them as friends is so interesting. It's so well done. It's so well written as far as how certain people in the South viewed black people in the 60s. I think it's the 60s. And how they would view them as like, oh man, I love this. I love this song. I love this music. But when it comes to using their bathrooms, when it comes to using their stuff, when it comes to being personal with them, it's stay back. And it's that racist connection of being racist, and you're still a damn racist. But oh, I love the music though, or I love the basketball. Basketball's great. Just don't eat at my table. And it's like, wait a minute, you just said it's such a disconnection of the racism where they're like, I'm not I just don't want you to eat at my and it's like this weird time period of white people giving all this money and giving this value to black people when it comes to music, when it comes to entertainment, but not giving them the same respect, and how the laws still discriminated against the top of the top. And that's who Mahershala Ali plays in this movie. He plays the best musician on the planet. And he's entertaining all these rich white people, but these rich white people still step on him no matter what. And it's got such that relationship between Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali is great. It's the idea of putting two people in a situation where they have to talk to each other, which is what they're doing and locked in the car. It's got funny moments. It's got sad moments. It's got heart-touching moments. It ends on a really positive note, which I think a lot of people didn't like. I loved it, and I put it as one of my favorite movies of the year. It's in my top 5. I love Green Book. And to think that this is the guy who gave us like Dumb and Dumber. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, I didn't see it. So I don't really have much to say. I guess a lot of criticism is just that it's it's from a white director, writer.
But there's a ton of movies that come from white writers and directors. I feel
right.
Am I wrong or no?
Nah, I think you're right. I mean, I think a lot of people just in this year in particular were we have so many great black movies. They're like, oh, we don't want to see this dude tell this story, you know?
Sure.
Now, I haven't seen it, so I don't really know, you know. I have to, like, watch it and evaluate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to check it out. You know, it's funny. I really hope this doesn't, I mean, of course, I haven't seen it, so I don't want to hate, but if this movie ends up, like, winning awards, like, over Black Klansmen, then I think it's going to be, like, a little bit of a problem for me.
Sure.
Only because it's, like, this is Driving Miss Daisy Part 2, you know? Like,
that's what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah, or especially if it wins, because Spike Lee famously didn't get nominated for Best Picture for Do the Right Thing in 1989.
That's right.
The same year that Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture.
That's right.
So, like, the optics again were like Black Klansmen getting Spike Lee all this Oscar attention and Green Book going up against it.
That's true. The only thing I can say is, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people disagree with me, but give Mahershala Ali the Oscar. That guy's incredible.
Yeah.
That guy makes me cry over, like, 5 minutes in Moonlight, whether it's 20 minutes in this movie. Like, no matter what the guy does, he's so freaking good, man. And in this movie, he's sensational. He's so good in this movie. He does the right balance of showing you a little layers to his character. Where when you first meet him, he's not a nice guy. Like you immediately think that, oh, Mahershala Ali is going to play the cool, fun black guy. No, not really. He's kind of just like a dick to everyone around him. It's really that the idea of having layers to your character and feeling a little bit betrayed of the America you live in and still wanting that connection towards it. He's so freaking good, man. Give him the Oscar. I don't care what anyone says. He's so freaking good in this movie.
Yeah. Give me Viggo Mortensen the Oscar for saying the N-word too in the interview. Just kidding.
Hey, man, he apologized.
Yeah, he apologized. You know, he apologized right after he said it. So that's, you know, it's always funny. For me, my number 4.
Yeah, number 4.
You had alluded to it before.
Okay.
That's Black Panther.
Okay.
That's my number 4 spot.
Number 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, number 4. Ryan Coogler did an amazing job with this film.
Yeah.
I think I give it, you know, I've seen it. It's no secret. I've seen this movie like 7 times in theaters. 6 times in theaters. And like 3 times on home video. So it's about 9 times in total. This movie has definitely sat with me multiple times, and I still find enjoyment in it every single time that I watch it. Is it a perfect movie? No, but not by any means or any imagination. The CGI, you know, at the end is whatever. The rhinos is kind of kooky. And, you know, them stealing this fight scene from Spider-Man 3 is a little nuts too. But it's okay because I think overall what this movie had to say, what this movie put on display, all of these great black actors, black dark-skinned actors too, representing a optimistic future for black people, representing something that is not about suffering, not about poverty, not about slavery. This is about a utopian society that promotes like Afrofuturism. It presents visuals that we've almost never seen before, and it just does, and it incorporates a lot of different facets of African culture and African lifestyle, and kind of merges them into this really kind of cool collective action movie that it, you know, it, besides it just being a comic book movie, it is wholeheartedly a story about a nation, a kingdom, and it's epic in that way too, and it has that epic feel in it, and it stays and it's grandiose. Like you could rename the movie Wakanda and it'll be almost the same movie. The warring of ideologies that we talked about before, just all of that really says, you know, Disney took a huge risk on doing this movie, because if you're saying things that radical like what Michael B. Jordan's character says in this movie, or even the idea of even the final result of building schools and educating people outside of your country, that's, I mean, for a conservative ass company like Disney, that's something to be applauded, right? Because, you know, like, you know, U.S. fights all of these wars in like other countries, but they don't even want to build schools or roads, you know, for said countries. They rather spend billions on war, and that's how a lot of American societies function, or not American societies. That's how a lot of global societies function in general. But this movie promotes something that's peaceful and optimistic, and of course it's Disney, so they're gonna say something like that, but it finds a good compromise for the ideology that Michael B. Jordan's character represents, Killmonger represents, plus the traditionalism. All of it is just great to me. Definitely deserves Best Picture as well.
Yeah.
So,
you think it's going to win it?
I don't know. It's probably Star is Born is going to win it. Neither of which is on our top 10. Is it on your top 10?
No, man.
Not gonna make your top.
No.
Make your top 10.
Jesus Christ! Why is that movie getting so much love?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't particularly love it, but you know,
I mean, I thought it was fine, but damn, best movie of the year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the direction it's looking at right now.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's funny. I don't know if it's funny, but. I haven't seen The Favorite on your list yet. I wonder if it's anywhere in the top 3.
I mean, we haven't finished, bro.
Okay,
we haven't finished.
All right.
We'll eventually find out. But
okay.
Have you seen The Favorite?
Yeah.
Is it?
No, I'm not a fan.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about The Favorite then, because it's not in my top.
Oh, really?
It's not. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you not see my tweets? You got to follow my tweets, bro.
Oh man, I might have not seen it.
My tweets, though.
I only really check Twitter once a day now.
I think The Favorite is a fantastic performance film. As far as like Rachel Weisz is a beast in that movie. Olivia Colman is great in that movie. Nicholas Hoult is awesome in that movie. Emma Stone is great, but the movie itself, to me. The first half of that movie, I was like, yo, this is great. The second half of that movie, where it basically is like, let's not really go anywhere and let's just kind of take the make up your own mind kind of thing. And I don't know, it just feels like it just ends. Like it just doesn't have a conclusion. It doesn't have a, and I guess that's the point, but I didn't care for it. Yeah. I didn't care for the ending.
Well, for me, it was a little more than the ending. I saw it. Usually when I see movies like that, I kind of got to meditate on it to like how I really feel about it, you know?
Sure.
Mostly because I thought the way the style was presented, like they use those very short lenses and they use the fisheye lenses for a lot of scenes too.
That threw me off so much.
And it's clearly a purpose to that. I just haven't been able to gather the purpose per se, you know?
Sure.
And for something that's that specific and that stylized, like, I think, and of course, if the guy
Yorgos Lanthimos,
I don't want to mispronounce
Yorgos Lanthimos.
If he came in and explained to me why he made that choice, I'd probably be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But the text didn't really provide that for me. So it felt like the style was almost separate than the substance. It had great performances and it had the period piece. Maybe that's it, man. Maybe too. Like maybe
you don't like period pieces.
Period pieces just ain't really my thing, man. Like,
period pieces are my thing. I love them. I love The Crown. I love British shows. I love British dramas.
Oh, but you know what I've been watching, man? I've been watching Sherlock, bro. Sherlock.
Oh,
have you seen Sherlock on BBC? Oh man, Sherlock's like the coldest motherfucker in the streets, man. Cold, man.
You gotta watch The Crown, bro.
Nah, I don't know about this. Sherlock is a modern show. It's not a period piece.
Yeah.
It's a modern show, but it's British though. So, but that dude be talking, man. He be solving them cases. Like, he be
talk shit.
Yeah, just talking shit. He'll talk.
Better than Cumberbatch.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Yeah,
he's not Doctor Strange anymore. Me, he's Sherlock for now, forever. 13 episodes of that show. Yeah, really 13 movies because each episode's 2 hours.
It is, yeah. I feel like The Favorite is for me, it's a performance movie, and I'm not going to take anything away from any performance in that movie just because I thought the movie was okay.
Yeah,
it was
not
just
bad
okay
movie.
to me.
It's not bad.
It was okay.
It's not bad. Yeah. It's just it didn't live up to what I think a lot of people are letting it live up to.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah.
My number 4 movie of the year is a movie that I saw towards the end of the year, and it had a lot of hype behind it. RB3, lots and lots of hype behind this movie, and I loved it, man. And I really feel like that's the nerd in me talking, but I love this movie, and that's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
That's perfect. That's my number 3.
That's your number 3?
Yeah.
That's my number 4. I'm wearing the shirt right now, representing Miles Morales. Latino Spider-Man, what's up?
Hey, man.
Represent.
Black Spider-Man, too.
I know.
Hey, man.
I know, both, man.
Both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, man, it's both. That's what it's like. Whoa, black or Latino? Both, homie. Both. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I love this movie, man. I felt like this movie was the perfect... If we're going to talk about like comic book movies and stuff later on as far as me goes, but the perfect culmination of comic book movies for Spider-Man, this is the one. This is it's perfect timing as far as Spider-Man movies. It's the perfect story for Spider-Man movies. It's the perfect message for Spider-Man movies. To me, this puts Spider-Man... No, I'm going to take it back. This reminded people what that Spider-Man is like. One of the world's best superheroes and why he's one of the world's best superheroes and what he represents and what he can do and the identity that Spider-Man has isn't just the identity of Peter Parker. Even though Peter Parker is the GOAT, he's the legend, #1. Shout out to Peter Parker. You know, he's the MJ. But at the same time, people like Miles Morales can be something else and can still have the same ideology, the same representation, the same message that Peter Parker brings to his character. Miles Morales can do the same thing and do it differently and still be great and still be awesome. That to me is one of the coolest, most well-done superhero messages of a character that everyone knows, and that's Spider-Man. And being such a massive Spider-Man fan, not just the movies, but the comics and the animated series and everything growing up as a Spider-Man fan, this movie to me was like, literally at the end of the movie, I was like, yo, I'm Spider-Man. That's what I said to myself, because I was like, yo, that's dope. That's such a dope message. The idea of like, I can take up this mantle and represent strength, power, responsibility, standing up to what's right, standing up for what's right, pushing down what's evil, like all that kind of stuff. All those messages that you hear in all these MCU movies and that you hear in all these DC movies, it was done almost better than any of those in this movie. I love Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, no, Spider-Verse is, like everything you said and more. I think that you're right. I mean, especially for this point in the Spider-Man franchise where we already had 3 live-action reboots, what other story can you tell besides the Miles Morales story? And more particularly, what story can encompass, what story can you tell that isn't the same old dragged-out Spider-Man tale that we've been familiar with this entire time? And I think the idea of it being anybody in a mask is like a self-reflective thing upon the past Spider-Man films too, because we've seen 3 different Peter Parkers, obviously, and they've all connected with audiences in one way or another. But it encourages that there's more than just these 3 pasty white guys. There's more than just you could be whoever. You could be a girl. You could be an anime character. You could be a pig. You could be a character from 1930s, which is, by the way, my favorite character in the movie, Noir Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
Peter Porker is a close number 2, though. But I think that all of them, all of what this movie represents, from the representation of diversity to the hip hop that they represent, just from the old school hip hop to the to the fashion that he wears, the Jordans, to the graffiti. A lot of people don't understand that hip hop. There's 4 foundations of hip hop: the MC, the rapping, the DJing, the graffiti, and the dance. And this movie kind of encompasses a lot of those elements in different ways. So it really is a strong hip hop piece as well, but it's also a strong character piece. It's a strong comic book piece. It opens with the whole like comic book authority like stamp thing at the beginning. Right, yeah. So it's very much an homage to the form of Spider-Man, to the form of comic books and the self-reflectiveness of comic books and the representation of comic books in today. Yeah. And how the mythology of comic books have become so ingrained in our culture that it's like, this is a world that imagines those myths being real. Yeah. Same way that Logan did that in 2017 as well. Put the mirror back to the comic books and really. But this is the first comic book movie that really looks aesthetically adapts the comic book style, and it adapts the comic book style while also being not beholden to any sort of particular like one thing. Yeah. It's a wholly original thing in and of itself.
I love that, man, and that's something that I said at the end of the movie too, and I forgot about that, but it's one of the first comic book hip-hop movies, probably ever. I mean, if you want to count a little bit of Black Panther, too, because it did have a little bit of that hip-hop sound.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it had a little bit of the traditional African sound as well. But to me, this is like it's the first modern comic book movie as far as like bringing in modern elements of music, of vibe, of style, of being in high school and what high school sounds like nowadays isn't, the 90s... Nickelback. It isn't.
Or isn't some like Shaq Diesel. What was it? Still when they had the little 90s bullshit hip hop in that shit.
Which one?
And Still with Shaq.
Oh yeah. No, this one felt like, that's high school now. This is school where you're playing hip hop, you're saying hi to your homies. Like that first 15 minutes of the movie, I was like, this is now. It's like now. It's the most modern comic book movie in that sense that it feels like they're not playing like Nickelback in high school. It's like, we don't play that stuff anymore. Like that's way old. That to me is one of the biggest things, because for me, there is still, and I'm telling you, RB3, as someone who's worked behind the scenes, and I'm sure you've seen a little bit of it, not a lot. Maybe you have, I don't know. There's still this weird kind of like resistance towards hip hop when it comes to movies and people behind the scenes and making movies and stuff. They still, hip hop is music. Like I still hear that from people I know, man. People I work with, they're like, oh, but come on, that's not a real song. It's just beats on a keyboard. And it's like people still have that mentality, and it's kind of like you don't realize how outdated you are, how hip hop has grown so much more than when it was before. So it's the most mainstream type of music, man. Yeah. Like it really is. Like as much as people don't,
it's the number one genre.
It is the number one genre. As much as people have resistance towards it, and as much as people want to have like, you know, take me back to the old school hip hop, take me back to Nas, take me back to, and it's like that's cool, and I respect that. But hip hop is mainstream, man. Yeah. You know, you got to get out of your head about like playing like the old school '90s rock songs. That's not comic book movies anymore. Yeah. Comic book movies are now hip hop.
What do you think?
It's mainstream.
What do you think had the better soundtrack, Black Panther or Spider-Man?
You know what's funny? I was listening to both on the way here, man. I can't lie, Black Panther.
Yeah, Black Panther definitely
man.
does have the best soundtrack.
Just King's Dead alone is enough for me. Yeah.
Slap on me now.
Yeah. Just that is enough for me to be like, yo, Black Panther deserves the Oscar.
Yeah,
Give him the Oscar. King's Dead.
This definitely is nominated for Album of the Year, man. So we might see that happen.
Yeah. But yeah, man. I mean, I love this movie. I love what it represents. As a Spider-Man fan, again, the idea of like, I'm rewatching My Hero Academia back from season 1.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen My Hero Academia yet, but the idea of All Might representing. All Might being like the Superman of this time period of My Hero Academia, and Superman representing not just being a badass and being strong and liberty and justice and freedom and all this stuff, but the idea of not just being a symbol, but that symbol reaching other people to the point of like ideology. That to me is like, yo, Spider-Man can represent ideology, like straight up philosophy. That to me is just deep. The fact that people can be inspired by this one comic book character that encapsulates so many different notions and beliefs. That to me is so powerful. I was like, yo, Spider-Man is that big. And obviously, for anyone who hasn't seen it, Miguel O'Hara, bro, 2099, let's go. Let's go, man.
That's funny.
Latino Spider-Man again. At the end of the movie, I was like, yo. And then obviously, all the twists in this movie is what killed me the most, man. The fact that this movie does a separate universe movie with a different type of scorpion, a weird Puerto Rican scorpion, a female Dr. Octopus.
Doc Ock was
Doc Ock was sick. Yeah. I was like, this is dope, man.
You know,
she's like a creepy, weird scientist with like bungee arms. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
And I think that's a completely original thing for this movie too. And you know, it's fascinating. They take all the kind of weird, quirky elements of the Spider-Man mythology with like the Aunt May being like the secret spy and like all these like weird corners of Spider-Man lore, and really adapts it in a really fun way, almost in a way that only animation could fully achieve. And I like that it feels like a wholly animated film. There's a technique. I think they're even trying to patent the technique for this movie, but this is the most gorgeous animation I've ever seen for an anime film, no doubt.
So well
the way
animated.
Spider-Man, the way the eyes are animated, the way, you know, when Spider-Man is in the mask and everything too. Perfect. And also, I also think that before I forget this thought, and I'm losing the thought right now, so that's that's fucking stupid.
I'm trying to give it back to you.
Let me give it back to me. Give me those thoughts.
Professor X.
No, I also think that in this encompassing of all of this different Spider-Man iconography and all of this unique visual imagery, at the end of the day, it's still a story about a black coming of age story too, and I think that's just as vital for people to see as well. And I think that that is really a really good African American centric coming of age film for kids to see. Is really impactful and important. So I think it's great. So, you know,
and it's funny, man. It's a funny movie.
It's hilarious. The Peter Porker stuff, the Spider-Ham. The fact that that character is a spider that was bitten by a radioactive pig. That he says in the movie. And by the way, I love the film. It's really only the second best Spider-Man adaptation to me, though, behind the PS4.
I'm with you.
Well, I was talking about just for this year.
Oh, I was talking about Spider-Man 2.
Oh, yeah. Spider-Man 2 is my number one as well.
That's my number one, yeah.
That's never going to move. But The Spider-Man PS4 game, though. Yeah. That's the shit. That's the shit. That's number one for me.
Let's go to my number 3, because that was your number 3.
That was my number 3, yeah.
That was my number 4. My number 3, speaking of comic book movies, man, I'll put it at number 3. Could have been my number 2, could have been my number 1. Avengers Infinity War is my number 3 movie of the year. Speaking of comic book movies, I said on Twitter, it's one of the best pure comic book movies I've ever seen. It's a culmination of fandom, and I get it. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, if you're not a fan, I don't care. I'm a fan. This is my top 10, homie. Yeah. So I'm putting it at number 3 because I feel like it's the perfect season finale. It's a culmination of all these MCU movies and the Russo brothers taking all these characters and the difficulty of balancing all these personalities and characters and story arcs and movies and responsibilities that you have towards the characters and to represent them in a certain way that audiences already have a connection to. And the fact that the Russo brothers accomplished that and so much more by giving us a story, by giving us already iconic fandom with Thanos, that Thanos broke into the mainstream in a way that I haven't seen a villain do since probably The Dark Knight. The Joker was the last time that we've seen so many Thanos. Like, Thanos has become like a meme within himself because of how big he got. But to me, what makes this movie work so well is the fact that it has so many different storylines and all of them have a conclusion, have a connection, and it feels like a perfect season finale where it builds something up, it teases something at the end, and then it leaves you hanging and leaving you for more. Infinity War is a true spectacle film. It's a true fun film. And if you're an MCU fan like I am, it's a fantastic, one of the best movies of the year. Avengers Infinity War. Mr. RB3.
I don't really know what to say here, man.
Come on, man.
I disagree.
You got to get off that hate train, bro.
I'm not hating,
You got to jump off that hate train.
You know what's funny? I'm
going to Spider-Man your web, and I'm going to stop that hate train. I'm going to jump in front of it.
No, please no. I actually... So I never really listened to our shows back. I never really do that. But I did. The one time I did was listening to our Avengers Infinity War review back.
I haven't done that.
Yeah. And I will say I was being harsh, but I think also I 100% agree with what I said back then. It's my same exact criticisms that I have now with the movie. It's just in the fact that like it's not. It's not conventional cinema. It's just not. You know, it's not.
I don't think it's ever meant to be though.
Yeah, I mean, but
I don't think it was ever meant to.
I just want a conventional movie. That's all, Ace.
Yeah, man, but that's not what it is. The MCU has passed that like 10 years ago.
Not really though, because I feel like there's other 5 movies.
Years ago.
Well, I know. I even
Avengers 2012.
No, even Black Panther is a totally standalone movie. You know what I mean? Like it's still just a standalone piece.
But Avengers isn't. Avengers Age of Ultron isn't either.
No, I say Avengers
Civil War. Civil War isn't either.
Civil War. So you don't think Civil War is a conventional movie? Like in terms of like a conventional structure, beginning, middle,
I think it's a conventional movie, but I think you miss a lot if you haven't seen any of the MCU movies before.
Yeah, but
you're going to be scratching your head and you're going to be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
But then there's
it's the same thing.
But there's what I'm saying in a conventional movie, not just like context for the movie, but character development. You know, like there's an actual full arc to every single one of these movies. There's a full arc in the story. There's a full arc in character. This movie doesn't have any of that, you know. So
I think that's where we disagree because I think it does. I think it does have character arc, and I think it does have specifically with Thor, specifically with Iron Man. Those are the two characters that have an arc in the movie.
I mean, it's an arc, but it's not the arc. You know, like it's not like an ending.
Talk about Noah's Ark, man.
But no, I mean, there's not a resolution. There's not a fully. And what we do get of somewhat of a resolution is. Like for Thor's for me at least with Thor's storyline, it's like we see almost like a regressive storyline of film. Before his whole thing was like you're Thor, you could be Thor without the hammer, and now he's like, oh, I need a bigger weapon. So it's like he regresses a little bit, but then when he does ultimately end up getting what he needs to restore his ego, get his pride back. It ultimately just ends up falling flat anyways.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of movies, man. You can name a lot of movies that characters have an arc and they end up falling flat. Yeah. That's life, man. Life, sometimes you fall flat.
That's true. I mean, that's very true. But also, it's like there wasn't enough else there developed around this character for me to like really.
I think there was. That's just me.
I mean, that's just me too.
With Thor and with Iron Man.
I'll say with Thor. I mean, Thor definitely had the most.
Yeah.
You know, but even with Iron Man, I didn't feel like it went anywhere. For me, it's like okay, like. I don't want to hate on this movie anymore because I actually think it's a pretty good movie now.
But it's not in your top 10.
It's not my top 10. No, it's not a top 10 movie. But in terms of like superhero movies, it's my number 3 of the year. So I think that, but I just think holistically speaking, at least, like
sure,
like all of the 3 separate story arcs had a similar structure and a similar dramatic question. Like, oh, we have to. It's like, oh, you have to kill something you love or somebody that you love. Sure. Oh, I don't want to do it. Oh, I'm going to do it anyway. Oh, it doesn't matter because Thanos is going to go back and reverse it. You know, for me, at least seeing that 3 times got a little tiresome for me.
Sure.
But, you know, I digress. Like,
that's fine.
It's not a conventional piece of sin. But I will applaud it for being as unconventional as it is and still being a cohesive movie because this could have easily been it could have been a really bad movie.
Yeah.
And they did, for this story, they did the best version of this story they could have done.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I like it.
Yeah, I love it.
8 out of 10.
I think it's amazing. And I really do feel like it's the perfect, again, season finale, culmination, whatever. I'm a big TV fan, and I love stories where you feel like, oh no, like I said about Supernatural on our episode, I talked about Supernatural. Game of Thrones has a lot of these moments where you feel like, oh no, all hope is lost, everyone's dead.
Yeah.
And it happened, everyone dies. That's Game of Thrones for you. And I love it because it leaves you like, yo, I feel connected to these characters. And that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing that Hollywood misses the most when it comes to building characters, is characters that the MCU has done this. They've made a television out of movies by connecting you to characters and character moments throughout different films. And I think that's so fascinating. And that's the number one thing that anime does with an anime series. And that's why, in my opinion, that's why a lot of Hollywood movies can't get anime right, is because it's not necessarily about the cool world. It's about the connection you have to these characters and building more and more deeper relationships with the audience. And that's what this movie did. It builds it up all the way from the beginning, all the way towards the end. And I love this movie.
Yeah.
What is your number 2 movie of the year?
My number 2, we have exited the League of Superhero movies because I had 2 superhero movies.
That concludes it?
Yeah, I had 2 in a row. You had 2 in a row as well.
I had 2 in a row.
Wow, you liked Infinity War more than Black Panther and Spider-Verse?
I did.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I don't want to disrespect your list.
Yeah.
For me, this is the end of the superhero segment for me, but it's not the end of the Black segment for me because this is another Black-led, Black-directed film that I'm putting
number 2
as my number 2, and that is Widows. That's right, Widows. Directed by Steve McQueen.
What?
Starring Viola Davis, Liam Neeson.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, no, Widows.
Color me shocked, man.
Widows is.
I thought you were gonna say another movie.
Nah, man, Widows is there, man, and you know, Widows to me, see, it's almost the flip for me of the Avengers thing, right? Like for me, I almost prefer if a movie's gonna be conventional in its story, but in its execution, it goes balls to the wall, you know?
Sure.
For me, that's this movie. This movie is a pretty paint by numbers heist movie, to say the least. But the execution of it, the style that Steve McQueen brings to this, the performances that he brings out of it, the character work that's done with each one of these characters, and the acting. I mean, I really can't stop thinking about. What's the homie's name? Brian Tyree Henry.
Brian Tyree Henry.
Amazing. Daniel Kaluuya.
He's the best part of the movie.
Everybody in this movie, and the way that it addresses all these different social issues in a kind of a sneaky way. I mean, it talks a little bit about police brutality. It talks a lot about sex work. It talks a lot about all of these different politics,
left-leaning politics,
definitely politics, 100%. The corruption of politics. How the Colin Farrell character is a politician who.
Isn't he a Democrat too?
I mean, yeah, he wants to represent. He claims to be, you know, he puts out a political front that he's for the people and he's all that, but behind closed door, he's like the most racist fucking person you're ever gonna meet. You know what I mean? Like, and then he hosts this whole program for like minority women workers. Like, what's happening here? It's all about that facade, that political facade that people put on. And I think all of that, and even with the Brian Tyler Henry character, he's a political figure who is running, but he's also running this whole criminal organization shit too, and that's really honestly probably the reality for a lot of these politicians too, at least on the local level and even on the national level too. So it's all of that. It encompasses so much. And like I said, this is all these movies that are on this list are all relevant to what's happening today. And Widows definitely had some really strong relevance.
Widows is interesting, man. I mean, I talked to another homie over the weekend who had Widows at like number 3. And I was like, really? I said the same thing to him that I'm saying to you because I don't know. I really do feel like it did touch on all those topics. I just don't think it balanced it well. I feel like it kind of went, whoa, and it kind of just fell over with all these plates in their hand. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. A lot of the storylines didn't work. Colin Farrell storyline didn't work for me. The Liam Neeson twist, I was like, it's fine.
Thanks for spoiling it, Ace. People know it's a twist now. I'm just kidding.
Well, I just said Liam Neeson twist.
Yeah.
Everyone knows he's in the movie. But I don't know. I just felt like that was kind of whatever. The ending of what concluded with Viola Davis and her character was whatever. To me, what stood out was just Daniel Kaluuya being a badass in this movie and just chewing up the scenery in every scene. The scene where the camera's rotated and he's asking him to rap more, that was the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
I was like, that's sick. That's sick when it's rotating, and he's getting more and more intense as he's rapping harder and harder. I was like, yo, that's sick. That's a dope scene.
Well, even the scene when Colin Farrell's driving back from his like speech.
Oh, that's a great with the
like
cameras on the car.
On the car, yeah, amazing. There's a lot of that's what like for me it's like For me, it's like, all you're saying is it is a little sloppy. It does have a lot of like loose threads.
Also, the time jumps don't work for me at all. Those time jumps, they didn't throw you off.
What do you mean?
The 2008, and then it jumps back to the San time when his son was around, and then it jumps back to the.
No, I got that.
I didn't like it at all. I was like, what's going on? Why so many time jumps?
For me, I thought that stuff worked really well. For me, like where it lacks in content where it lacks in content and in story, it more than makes up for in form and style and direction. Wow. So all of that stuff for me makes
crazy.
Makes
number 2, Widows. Shout out to Steve McQueen, man.
Yeah, Steve McQueen,
He's still
my
a
guy.
great director.
Yes, sir.
It's my turn. My number 2. I was gonna ask you what your number 1 is, but
go for your number 2, bro.
My number 2 is a movie that you already mentioned, man, and I put it in my number 2 because I love this movie. I sat in the theater and I really didn't know what to expect coming from this director. And I was like, it'll probably be. I thought it was gonna be over the top. I thought it was gonna be so goofy, and I was like, it's probably gonna be all right. And it wasn't. It was the perfect balance between slight humor and slight over the top moments, but it's still a grounded story, and that is Black Klansman. I put it in my number 2, man. I love this movie. I really did come out of the theater feeling connected to the story, feeling a connection towards John David Washington's character, Ron Stallworth. I love the goofy moments of this movie. I love the serious moments of this movie. I love how in your face this movie is because it's very in your face, and I forgot how in your face it was till I rewatched it. As far as how it really is showing you the deep levels of racism that people have, and how the KKK has been an influence towards so many people that they don't even realize it has been. Especially with the whole political angle that this movie starts to tackle with David Duke, and how the political Spike Lee is not shy about showing you how relevant this movie is and how relevant this story is, about how so many different things about politics and about white identity and white representation and all this stuff that people start to say nowadays have been saying since back in the day. And it's the same KKK ideology. It's the same shit now. And people are like, no, it's different. It's not. I swear it's not. It's just having pride in your white race and blah. And it's like all this bullshit that people are spewing out now have been spewing out since way back in the day. And I think that's the biggest connection that Spike Lee was trying to say in the movie. And I felt it. I was immediately taken into it with the whole David Duke trying to get into mainstream angle with the KKK being a hyper-racist, hyper-violent organization. The connection that Adam Driver's character was going through, and that the undercover angle of going a little bit too deep and saying all these horrible, awful things that Adam Driver says in the movie, and the ending of Adam Driver. Just because I rewatched this movie last night, as I said before, and when he has that connection towards David Duke, and David Duke says to him, "Hey, are you a non-Jew, proud white American?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "No, I want you to say it." And Adam Driver's eyes kind of shake a little bit, and you're like, "Oh yeah," he feels that a little bit, where he's like, "Yo, this is some dark ass shit." Like the KKK is some dark ass shit. The whole movie I really connected to. I forget her name. I think she's great. The girl who plays Ron Sarwarth's girlfriend.
Yeah, I forget her name too. Patrice is the character's name, but
there you go. I think she's great. I think that whole connection that they have. I think the relationship worked because I was really kind of concerned with that. I was like, oh, really? The whole undercover cop falls in love. This was me during the movie, and I was like, oh, that worked. I felt completely original, unique. When they're talking about the blaxploitation films, that scene really did it for me.
Those are scenes that I love.
I was like, man, this is great, man.
Yeah.
I love this movie, man. I think it has a lot to say, and I think it says it well, and I think it has that perfect balance between showing you some really dark stuff, but at the same time, because that scene when they're intercutting between Birth of a Nation and the story that the guy's telling, that's one of the most powerful scenes this whole year.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's very relevant, like I said, very relevant, and particularly with the Birth of a Nation thing. I mean, that's a movie that
scene is again one of the best scenes of the year.
Yeah. It really tells the true story of the kid being hung out, in that town, and is so graphic and everything too. And I think by comparing and contrasting how Black pride ideology is rooted in legitimacy, how it's rooted in the actual oppression that Black people have faced over the years, how violence and discrimination has plagued the African American race, the Black race, for so long. Comparing that to the KKK ceremony where they're being inducted for literally, and for this like false hollow like Christianity thing that they're doing, like throwing the water on them, and acting like there's some sort of sanctity behind the Ku Klux Klan when there's really not. And it just goes to show like how evil and despicable that organization is, and what the pro-Black people during that time was trying to go for. And a lot of times people will criminalize, like the Black Panther organization, Black Panther Party, and all these different movements that are happening during that time. But it was, and they even say that in the film, like the guy in the beginning, even though we were supposed to think that the white police chief guy is like the super progressive guy, in the beginning he's like, as far as I'm concerned, the Black Panthers are the most terrible, or the biggest threat to American safety or whatever, or biggest American threat, which was an actual thing that was being pressed during that time. But as this movie highlights, the KKK is a much more deadly, terroristic type of organization. And of course, like I said, the historical accuracy throws off the thing. But for me, but that's where the benefits of not adhering to historical accuracy is a benefit, because it shows how terroristic the KKK really was. Even though that particular bomb didn't go off in that particular instance of the story, it is a very real and common thing for the KKK to do bombings on houses, on schools, on cars, all that kind of stuff. So that's why, in churches. So that's why even though I kind of ding a little bit of points for that, it's very powerful, that whole thing and that whole sequence, and it really adds to the stakes to make it really personal. So.
Yeah, and I love how, again, I feel like everything that Spike Lee is doing in this movie is very, it's not subtle, it's not shy, it's very much in your face as far as what he's trying to say, as far as the relevancy of this story to now, how everything reflects back to 2018. Even the whole idea of Felix's wife being just as racist and as disgusting as he is. This idea of the I don't know the word to use, but the idea of like this the progressive white wife who's just wants what's right in life, and she's she's progressive and she's nice and she's not racist. No, white women are just as racist too, man. I mean, the idea that the women are much more like peaceful and less racist than the crazy white men who are very no. It's like no, the idea that white women are still responsible for a lot of atrocities too, and a lot of ideologies that they possess are just as bad as their husband's ideologies, and they believe the same shit too, and they're just as racist and they're just as despicable, and they have to stop being so. We have to stop being so like, you know, putting our hand mittens when it comes to that, you know? And I love how Spike Lee doesn't give a shit. He's like, no, look, she was committing the terrorist act, and she's just as responsible as his husband is. I don't know. To me, that's very much on purpose, and to me, that's very important. Because I feel like a lot of people ignore that nowadays.
Well, I mean, a little bit unrelated, but that brings me back to something I saw today where, I guess it was MSNBC or one of those news agencies. They're doing this whole story of like, oh, look at this. The top three heads of the top three companies in the military industrial complex are all women. Like, I'm like, wait. Are you telling me that I'm supposed to think it's progressive that a woman is bombing kids in Yemen and shit like that? Like, am I really supposed to? Is that gonna make the difference for me? Like, what the fuck? That's the most you know what I mean? So
I know what
like
you mean 100.
Yeah.
There's this weird thing that the media has. I don't want to get into it. That they, I don't know, man. I'll talk to you about it later. But Atlanta talks about it. Let's just say that. The idea of white girls just being like the most. Never mind. I'm gonna stop. Either way, Black Klansman is my second favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, and I love it. I would have.
There's so many great lines in this movie too. Like the you're telling me that America is going to vote for a white racist man in the White Office? Yeah. That's crazy. That's funny. The America First is hysterical. Yeah.
I think the shit with the I think there's actually some really funny lines when they're talking about like all the black famous people, which is actually a conversation that happens in almost every Spike Lee, not almost every Spike Lee movie, but it's a common conversation in every Spike Lee movie. They're like, oh, who's your favorite black athlete? Who's your favorite black politician? And they're just like, OJ.
Yeah. That's the best part. You're right. It's like, you know who the real best is? OJ. And he's like, OJ. Yeah. And they're going crazy over it. I don't know, man. I think it's great, and obviously my favorite is with the right white man, we can do anything. That's the best line in the movie. Yeah, it's a great movie, man, and I love how, like you said before, it shows both sides of the police department too. Yeah. And it has a very realistic perspective as far as what the time period was. Yeah. Even Adam Driver's character, even the other cop's character, I forget his name. Yeah. The guy who plays the goofy guy.
Jimmy, I think.
Who's the goofy guy who it felt very real. It felt like, that's the kind of guy I would see in Adam Driver is the kind of guy I would see in a police detective place or whatever. It felt real to me. What is your number one movie of 2018 RB3? I'm ready because I don't know what it is.
Well, number one movie, Ace.
I'm ready to be shocked.
Is a movie I just saw today.
What?
A movie I just saw.
And it's your number one?
I gotta cry to number one, man. I watched this movie and I was like, okay, maybe this is the number one I've been waiting for this year. You know.
What is it?
It's the movie ticket I'm holding right now. If Bell Cherie Could Talk.
Really?
Ladies and gentlemen,
that is your number one. Wow. I mean, I put it in my top 10. I love this movie, RB3. Yeah. Tell me about it. Tell me why it's your number one.
I just think this movie overall is unbelievably beautiful. Just from a cinema perspective, like the way the cinematography, the light. There are moments in this movie that I was watching and I'm sitting and there's two people talking, and at a point I just stopped realizing I wasn't hearing the actual words they were saying. I'm just looking at the images. I'm like, damn, like. The lighting, the composition, like it's so beautiful. It's like every single image out of this movie is like an expressionist painting or some fine artwork that you'll see hanging up in like a Pan-African museum. Every single frame of this movie. So for me, it's like wow, like just from the style, the form of it, from the very minimum is already like compelling. It's already the most engaging thing I've watched this year. But then we get to the story of it too, right? The story of, based on the James Baldwin, book, this movie feels like James Baldwin encompassed, It has that very Black Americana text, the poeticism, the dialogue is very realistic, but very very romantic as well. Like, and I don't mean like romantic in like a love sense of romantic, but very colorful, very flowery, but also realistic at the same time. It tuggles that very like fine line. You're right. The structure of the movie is wholly poetic. Like it has breaks. It has, stoppages. It has those moments where they're addressing the social issue at hand. I love those. I love every single one of those scenes where they cut away and they're like, and they explain some shit like they're like, this police officer is racist and this and this reason, or this, like the way the narrator explains those moments are just all beautiful. The editing in this movie, beautiful. The characters, I mean, I felt like I could realistically see every single one of these people. Just everything about this movie was just absolute perfection for me, almost. Like, I really think this is the #1 movie of the year for me.
That's great, man. I mean, I feel like a lot of attention is given to Regina King, but I really feel like the two leads, man, they really drive this movie, especially her. I forget her name.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on the actress.
But she's great. The girl who plays the pregnant.
The character's name is Tish.
Tish, the pregnant girl who has her boyfriend in jail, fiance, whatever it is. She's great, man. She's a great narrator. You feel the connection. His storyline, too, I love, especially towards the end, you get a little bit more of Fonny, and you get a little bit more of a connection towards him and how he feels, his idea towards life, his conversation with Brian Tyree Henry's character, and how he feels and what his realization of this world is in this time period in this country is so fascinating. It's so interesting. Yeah. But I got to talk about one of my favorite parts of this movie that I didn't talk about on when I talked about it is all the freaking, and I know it's not really spoilers, kind of spoilers. All the cameos in this movie, man. All them Latinos popping out. Like out of nowhere. When Fonny is like, yo, Pedrito, my homie, my brother, and he starts speaking Spanish.
Who's
it's Diego Luna.
Oh, really?
Diego Luna comes out, and I'm like, yo, that's Diego Luna. And he's like, what's up, homie? And he starts dancing with him and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, that's cool. Yeah. And then when freaking Regina King
goes to Puerto Rico.
Like, no, when she goes to the neighborhood, the Puerto Rican neighborhood, and she needs to.
She goes to Puerto Rico.
She does, but I'm saying like before that.
Oh, okay.
And then homie comes out and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's like, "What you need?" And it pans, and it's like freaking Pedro Pascal, man.
Yeah,
Oberyn Martell.
I got that one.
All the cameos in this movie. Dave Franco, out of nowhere. He's like, you just see a freaking yarmulke that turns around and is like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And it's like, yeah. All the cameos in this movie were like an Adam Sandler movie type cameos. Yeah. They were just so funny and so fun to see. And I feel like Barry Jenkins had fun doing that. Yeah. I don't know. I loved it.
It's nice that wasn't in the marketing, because if you put that in the trailer, people are going to be disappointed, because it's literally all those characters are just there for one scene.
Yeah, and it's perfect in the movie.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved all the freaking Diego Luna, Pedro Pascal, I love Dave Franco. Like, all the cameos were cool, man.
Well, I love the structure of this movie, because it's not like a fully linear structure. It's more episodic. You know, it's like, we're gonna spend this 20 minutes with this storyline, and we're gonna spend this 20 minutes with this storyline, and 20 minutes with this. You know what I mean? Like, and then in between they have those like I said, those breaks that like where the narrator's like saying stuff that the words that she's saying is so beautiful. The voice that she's saying it in is so beautiful, and then the visuals on screen are just like topping it all off. So for me, like this, I mean, of course, it's like an art film. It is very much an art film, but it's also equally as much as a commercially viable. I feel like this movie could really take off if it had the right kind of like push and everything too.
100. You know what? I was gonna say this in my tweet. Annapurna should be putting more push behind this movie, man.
Yeah.
They should be pushing this one more than Vice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I like this 100%. One more than Vice. I was like, yo, why isn't Annapurna talking about if Beale Street could talk more than, because Vice for me is like I feel like they're putting all their money behind Vice, whereas like they should be putting more money behind If Beale Street, man, because this one is great. Right. I think it's the best Annapurna movie of the year for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I heard maybe not some great things about Megan Ellison, but I don't know if those things are true.
Oh, between her, she's the one over.
She's the one
right?
over Annapurna. Yeah. I heard she's been slacking a little bit lately. Yeah. I don't know if those are true. Megan Ellison, if you're listening to this, don't take that.
I don't think she is.
Yeah. Megan Ellison, I love I love Bill Street, so don't get insulted. By the way, Brad Pitt is the Plan B. Plan B was also one of the things on this too. But I also did Moonlight. So Barry Jenkins. I feel like I almost like this one more than Moonlight. Honestly,
I definitely like this one more than Moonlight, but that's because I didn't really care for Moonlight. I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I really do love this movie, but damn man, #1, that's crazy. It really is. I mean, the score killed me. The score. I told you last time.
Exactly. Yeah.
That score. As soon as it started, I was like, oh my god. Mm-hmm. You know what this reminded me of too, man? And I'm gonna, oh my god, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, RB3, but it really felt like, oh man, you're gonna kill me. It really felt like an anime movie, like an anime romantic movie with the narrator, with the storyline, with the music being in the background, with the shots, with the colors. It really felt like this was like a Your Name type movie, where I mean, obviously Your Name has a little bit of a different sci-fi angle towards it. And a little bit more comedy, but it felt like those quiet moments where the score is hitting, and you just have a shot on her and a shot on him, and then a shot on her and then a shot, and it just stays like that for like a good 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. That felt very anime to me. The narrator felt very anime to me. Just the whole thing felt like a romantic anime movie that is very much presenting a story to you in a very colorful type of way, in a very, like you said, romantic type of way, with the colors, with the music, with the story, with the setting. Everything felt very purposeful.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And to me, I love it too because, of course, like I've studied African American literature and stuff, and read a lot of James Baldwin's books, throughout my freshman and sophomore years of college. And this feels, I mean, I haven't read the particular book that this is based on, but this feels like a James Baldwin adaptation, and the jazziness of it, the jazziness of the music, but also the tone, the poeticism. It all feels just like something right out of a James. Like I'm reading James Baldwin, and this is the visual representation of it. And I almost feel like, man, I almost wish like if there was any way that Barry Jenkins could direct all James Baldwin adaptations from now on, please do. I really hope that we could work some sort of deal out here. But yeah, no, 100%. And one last thing about this movie, I think that the whole message that it has about, well, not message, but it shows you the downsides of incarceration and the effects that incarceration has on families, and how the prison system has been systematically rigged against Black people for so long.
Cool. Let's end with my #1 movie of the year. You already know what it is. I've been saying this since I saw the movie. Over the past few years since I've been doing this top 10 list, I always pick the movie. My #1 movie is always a movie that pushes me emotionally, that grabs me and shakes me more than any other movie. And this is the movie that did that this year, and that is Hereditary. Hereditary is my #1 movie of the year. Yeah. It is a movie that shook me the most. It is a movie that disturbed me the most. It horrified me. It killed me. It hurt me. And if that was the point of the movie, then my God, did it accomplish it. This movie is incredibly directed by Ari Aster. It's powerful. It's mysterious. As I said before, it's horrifying in a sense, not necessarily of imagery, of scary imagery. There is a little bit of scary imagery in this movie, but not as much as other horror movies. It's horrifying in the sense, like you said, in a much more psychological sense, in a much more familial sense, because I think the family angle is something that a lot of movies have done in the past, but the fact that it just amplifies everything times 10 by making it 10 times more personal, 10 times more in your face, 10 times more horrifying when you think about a son, a daughter, a child, a mother, those relationships that people hold so dear to their hearts and that everyone essentially has to have a connection towards. That's what is tackled in this movie, and it's done so well because it pushes the envelope of what those relationships can be and how horrifying they can be. Yeah. It's obviously it's a horror movie and it has that connection towards the movie. I really do think from start to finish this movie is perfect. It's beautifully shot. The score is already freaking you out and nothing has happened yet. The atmosphere...
Score's dope.
The score's dope. The atmosphere is built up so well, and it builds up in a sense where you're on the edge of your seat and nothing is happening. Like I was talking to my friend about it, where they're having a conversation in the car, or they're talking in in the kitchen table. Nothing is happening, and you're freaking the freak out because you're like, what's going to happen? Because you don't know what's going to happen because everything is shrouded in mystery. And the way that Ari Aster unveils that mystery is so well done. The conclusion is the perfect climactic finish of this horrifying story, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And the way it reveals information to you is so well done. This theater experience for me was insane. I was on the edge of my seat. I was freaking out. I was almost at the point of screaming at the theater, at the screen, because once again, I've told you a million times, and I've said it on this podcast, I've said it in other things, don't mess with demons, bro. Demons are the one thing where you're like, nah, man, I don't want to mess with that shit. And sure enough, they mess with that shit in this movie, and it does so in a way that feels so realistic, so grounded, that you feel like it could actually happen to you in the sense. This movie is a true, beautiful movie, and it destroyed me and horrified me more than any other movie, and that's why it's my #1 movie of the year.
Hey, man. Can you disagree with that?
Yeah, man. I mean, you recently saw it, so you can finally, sit inside the pain that I've been feeling for months now.
Yeah. I mean, horror movies are a little tough because even with Hereditary, I wasn't like... It was not like the traditional like scare. You know what I mean?
No.
Like,
yeah.
But I think that movie did a really good job in unnerving you in a completely different way. So, and even much respect to the dude Alex Wolff, right?
Yes, he was so good in that movie, man.
Yeah,
obviously Toni Collette's getting a lot of attention, deservedly so.
Toni Collette, yeah, obviously.
But he is so good.
Yeah, he was like quietly good. You know?
Yeah.
No.
The scene. I mean, obviously, I don't want to spoil anything, but where. There's a lot of moments in this movie, but there's a moment when he starts breaking down, I'm like, oh my God, yes. That's exactly how I would break down, man. Because that's the thing. I was talking to my brother about it. It feels so realistic. Like people's reaction in this movie feel like how they would actually react.
Yeah.
Toni Collette's reaction to tragedy, let's just say that, in this movie, murdered me. It killed me. I don't know about you, but it made me feel like, like, oh my God, my like stomach was sinking. When Alex Wolff was freaking bawling his eyes out, and he's like, and I'm like, well, even me too, man. I'm gonna cry too, and I'm watching this movie.
Well, even in that moment that you're talking about with her, she has that moment, and the camera pans over, and it goes to him, and he almost has like an equally tragic way.
Oh, dude, it's such a, oh man, it's about like. When you realize that the demons you're facing in life are actual demons that you're facing in home, I mean, that's so deep on so many levels. The fact that relationships you have with your children are now becoming relationships you have with your enemy. That's so deep too. I mean, speaking of Alex Wolff and Toni Collette towards the end of the movie, because you feel like they're going back and forth and you're like, oh, this is just, makes you feel awful inside because you feel both sides. You feel Alex Wolff and you feel Toni Collette. It's just, I don't know, man. It's one of the most powerful movies I've seen in a while. And once again, every year I pick movies that are like horror movies. I'm not a big horror movie guy. I mean, I picked Get Out last year. Nocturnal Animals was one of my favorites of that year of 2016. Was my favorite movie. That's another horrifying movie. Prisoners, Nightcrawler, like all these movies that I pick are movies that make me feel like shit. But that's essentially what the director's going for, and man, did he nail it. Yeah. I think he killed it, and I think he should be getting a lot more attention. This movie killed me. Killed me. Either way, guys, finally we conclude our top 10 movies of 2018. Yeah. Let us know in the comments down below, what is your list? What is your favorites?
I do want to point out a quick observation. Your list, you had number 5 as Green Book and number 4 as Spider-Verse. Both movies are from Mahershala Ali.
Both movies from Mahershala Ali. That's right.
My list, funny enough, has number 1 Bell Street, number 2 Widows, and number 3
Brian Tyree Henry.
Brian Tyree Henry.
Brian Tyree Henry's Spider-Verse too, man.
Yeah. So funny connection.
Yeah, man. Hey, he's a guy of good year, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry for having 5 black movies on my list.
Why you gotta apologize?
Well, I know the fucking white people.
I had a few. I had a Green Book, Blind Spotted, Beale Street Could Talk, Creed 2. Black Klansman, Spider-Man.
Yeah. I mean, those are just the movies that
it's just good movies, man.
That doesn't matter. 5 black directors. Well, I can believe it. A full top 10 list with 5 black directors. You can really make a top 10
I had a
list
Latino director in there too, man.
You had a Latino director. I had Lynn Ramsey, woman director.
There you go.
Yeah, hey, good times for representation.
There you go, man. Either way, guys, let us know in the comments down below. What is your top 10 list? Hopefully you enjoyed ours. What do you think of our list? What is your favorite out of our list? What is your personal favorite of the year? Let us know all that in the comments down below. Please support First Cut. It's new beginnings, new times. Hashtag support the homies.
Support the homies.
Let's spread it throughout the internets, throughout Film Twitter. We are here, Film Twitter, and we're here to stay.
Film Twitter.
For the Meaning of Podcast, I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And we are peacing out. Peace out, guys.